And we are back with another episode of the Hockey Princess podcast. Guys, we have Charlie from Triple Deke Hockey on joining us this week. Charlie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Been looking forward to this ever since we started discussing coming on this podcast. Always glad to talk hockey in general, but especially on a Blackhawks podcast. You don't got to twist my arm to get here.
Excellent.
Excellent. Charlie, first off, we want to hear the origin story, not only of the store that just launched, but also how did you get into hockey?
For sure. So it goes all the way back to my childhood. I was roughly around 7 years old. My sister was dating a hockey player at the time, and my brother and sister are much older than I am. So I always admired everything that they did. And they brought me to my first Blackhawks game by surprise in 2007. It was a Blackhawks Blues game, and I absolutely fell in love with it from that day on. And at that time, actually, once that happened, the Blackhawks weren't on TV. So the only thing I had to keep going with hockey was the Mighty Duck movies. And that's where the name comes from. And obviously being named Charlie, having the connection to Charlie Conway, that only helped a little bit more. But as time goes on, I just kept getting more and more into it. It also really helped being a growing boy during the best Stanley Cup run in modern history, I would like to think. From 2010 to 2015, couldn't complain about being a Hawks fan whatsoever, and I yearn for those days desperately. But ever since then, I've just been growing my collection of hockey jerseys, hockey shirts, hockey memorabilia in general. I just want to be able to show the game through the meaning or through these pieces and over the course of history, how they've changed over time, different designs, different materials, stuff like that. And I got into vintage resale around 2021, but I was just doing general vintage resale. I was doing it part-time too, so I didn't really have the full opportunity to focus on it as much as other people were able to.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I made the choice to switch over to just focusing on collecting vintage hockey gear in general. I started the Triple Deke page in late 2022 on Instagram and was just running things off of there for a while. And eventually it got to the point where I was like, I really want people to be able to have the chance to view what I have to offer at any given time. And that's where the website came from. I launched the website on the first day of playoffs, April 18th, and it was really successful from the start and has been since then. I'm super grateful for all the support that everybody's been giving, and I'm very excited to see what we can do for next season going forward and how we can make this bigger and bigger.
Excellent. With the initial kind of reaction when the site launched, was it a lot of more Blackhawks supporters just because of the location and everything and what was on the site, or did you notice that there was a good fair amount of not just Blackhawk support?
So I would say there was a pretty even mix of both.
Mm-hmm.
I do have an entire page dedicated on the website to just Blackhawks gear because this was the centennial season and I did want to find a way to celebrate that.
Mm-hmm.
I will be leaving it up until probably the end of this calendar year, just to run out the rest of the centennial season, and we'll be adding to it as time goes on. But besides that, I mean, there was a good mix of people from all over the country for different teams that were in the playoffs, teams that weren't, Blackhawks supporters, just hockey fans in general. People who were saying I don't watch hockey that much. They reached out to the page afterwards. They're like, I don't really watch hockey that much, but I saw your website and couldn't turn down buying this really cool shirt or something like that. And even just hearing stuff like that lets me know that this website is heading in the right direction. It might not be perfect, but it is going where I want it to go at the moment.
Excellent. What is your, and this could be something, that's on the site right now in your own collection. What is kind of your pride and joy jersey?
So I'll probably do two answers. One for one that's on the website, one that's in my personal collection that I'll probably never get rid of under any circumstances ever. Sorry. On the website, it's it's also in my personal collection, and it's the exact jersey that I wore to the Hockey Hall of Fame. There's a Nike Chris Chelios retro red jersey. Super simple, super clean. Can't really get much better than that, in my opinion. It's the most beautiful jersey in sports. But for my personal collection, I have my all-time favorite player, Marian Hossa's jersey from his time in Ottawa in their black third jersey with the full face senator on it, and that's always one of my favorites to bring out anytime I can.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite? And this can be not Blackhawk. Heck, it doesn't even have to be NHL. But do you have a favorite, like alternate third, like a specialty jersey that is kind of your favorite? Like I'm a big fan of like the purple crown from the LA Kings.
Oh,
Um,
that's a good one.
right? We got to bring more purple into hockey. I'm a firm believer in that.
I do believe that the Kings should go back to the full purple jerseys like they had in the mid 2000s, just branching off of that. But as far as alternates go right now, they got a lot of negative flack, and apparently they're going to be going away. But I really did enjoy the black Califin Sharks jerseys that they've had the past couple years.
Yeah,
I feel like those are super sleek. I love the new shark fin logo. It's kind of minimalist, yes. I'm sure people would rather see the full body shark like there was previously, but I
right.
think it's a new nice update to that series of black Sharks jerseys over the course of their history. It is sad to see it go away, but I know they'll find something better to replace it with.
What are your thoughts on? I'm blanking on the name, but it's like the new ones. Like the Panthers have come out with like a new one, and it's like bright
The
pink.
hometown remix.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the new ones?
So, based on the speculation that I've seen of what different colors are going to be for different teams, it says that the Blackhawks are getting a green jersey, which kind of intrigues me a lot. I'm not sure if they're just going to do this the St. Patrick's thing that they've been doing in the past, like around the Kane and Tays era, where they would just put the logo on the green jersey. It's basically just the red jersey, but it's green.
Right.
I don't think they'll do something that simple. I do feel like we saw with the Panthers, we're going to see something a little outside the box. I don't believe that they're going to play it safe on this one. And especially after the reverse retro series with Adidas, personally, I wasn't a huge fan of either of the Hawks jerseys. I think they were at the lower tier of both of those programs. But I think this is a great opportunity for them to really put out an interesting alternate jersey that people will not just be interested in seeing on the ice, but wanting to own themselves. Outside of that, I I'm interested to see what the Bruins will look like in brown. I I can't remember many of the other colors off the top of my head. I think I also heard the Ducks are going to be green too, and that immediately makes me think Mighty Ducks D5 like throwback jerseys to the original movie. I don't know if they'll use the exact logo or just throw their logo on like similar striping or something like that. It would be interesting to see regardless. But I think the whole program in general is going to be interesting no matter what. People are obviously going to have their myself included, will probably have their reactions off the cuff when we see pictures of them. But
Right.
like always, once you see these things in person, that changes perception so much. I just think getting the ability to see the product in person before making a determining opinion on whether it's good or not is always a good thing, especially when it comes to something like that.
Oh, for sure. Have you? I'm assuming you've also seen because I think the there were posts about it everywhere with the speaking of Mighty Ducks of people wanting the Ducks to wear the Mighty Ducks and the Blackhawks to wear like the Hawks jerseys from the movies. I don't know how they would be able to make it work, but I would just love to see it for like a silly exhibition get just for fun.
I agree. I wonder if there's some kind of outdoor aspect that could be tied into it to just add
Mhm.
to the spectacle of it. Um, Maybe bring it all the way back to Minnesota just to really tie it all together, but then the Wild kind of get left out, which would be kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Um, I would be interested in it no matter what. Like I said, that movie franchise is supremely foundational to not just my website, but me as a hockey fan. So seeing any sort of NHL real life connection with that would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Christy, what are your thoughts on, do you have a favorite alternate, a third jersey? I know you're going to probably pick a Blackhawk one, but any of them.
I was thinking of something. Now I already forgot it when you brought up the Kings one. And now I can't remember exactly. I really liked I believe it was the Rangers when they had the Statue of Liberty on the jersey. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed that one. I have a feeling that might come back because, Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is supposed to be like almost, I've heard it's kind of like the City Connect thing that like baseball has done, which I know I'm a White Sox fan, so they've redone, some of their jerseys to black and red for like the Bulls and the Blackhawks, except on their sock they have some silly wing, which just threw me completely off to the point where I didn't like it. But is that kind of the game plan of incorporating things from the city with some of this, or do you know, or?
Based on what I do know, I do believe that they're going to try their best to not use logos or imagery that have been used already. I could be entirely wrong on that, but based on everything, I mean, like we saw, the Islanders takes away from that theory a little bit based on their leak, but the Panthers one is completely outside of the fact that the front patch does look similar to their shoulder patch. It is different. Mm-hmm. It's a completely new idea, and like you mentioned, connects to the city and connects to the area super well. I wouldn't be surprised if that is a main overarching theme on these jerseys going forward. Like, for example, we could see Chicago Stars on the Blackhawks jersey. Now that I'm saying that out loud, I would love that.
Yeah.
But I do believe, they're going to try their best to use stuff that hasn't been used before and make these entirely brand new, independent of anything from the past.
Okay. And then I guess I have one more question where I make the same mistake I always do on this show. And I don't know if you would know the answer. I don't know if Hockey Princess would know the answer. But as far as these jerseys, whose responsibility is it? Is it completely like, say, the Panthers and their organization who comes up with everything? Do they have to go through a process with the NHL? Or do you have any idea how that works? Because I'm a little fascinated whether this is just the teams or it's a collaboration with the NHL.
So it's not necessarily with the league in general. I'm sure there is approval that the league has to put down at the end of it all, but it is usually between the brand manufacturer and the teams themselves. The teams themselves have ideas, the brand manufacturers have ideas. They kind of come together on a compromise on those. I would definitely say it's more like a 70-30, like the teams are designing 70% of it and the manufacturer is probably pitching in like 30% of the design effort, I would say. The 30% mainly being like, we want you to use these guidelines, like go outside the box kind of thing. As far as that might change team to team too. Like Fanatics might just have certain ideas ready to go for certain teams, and certain teams will probably just be on board with it. I don't know. I can't speak for certain, but I would like to think that it's a majority the teams themselves bringing ideas to the table and just kind of working together with Fanatics in this scenario to create something that's new in their identity.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense because each team, their departments would be different sized as far as how they would handle something like that. I would assume some teams wouldn't have a huge development department for like that, and other teams would. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
I also feel like it kind of depends on, I feel like that the relationship would kind of depend on the market itself. Like I feel like original six market, like the team is going to have stricter, like this is what we want this to look like because this
Correct.
is what they did, because original six teams are so traditionalist. Especially Chicago. I wish Chicago needs some more fun jerseys. But they're like, we have to look this way, whereas the Florida Panthers are kind of just like, we're going off of vibes. We can kind of look however we want to, and I feel like that kind of just fits with Florida too.
Right. There's definitely something to be said about the pressure of tradition and upholding that kind of thing. There's almost like you don't want to like disturb it almost. But sometimes there is a good opportunity, like Krusty mentioned with the Rangers jerseys. That's an original six team. They really stepped outside the box putting those on the front of their jerseys. They had just been wearing Rangers across their jerseys for 90 years up until that point, or however long up until that point. But I do think that this specific hometown remix project is going to be a really good opportunity for teams to try something new and to take a step. Even the original six teams, like I wouldn't be surprised if we see like the Leafs or Canadians come out of the box with something crazy. It would. I'm excited to see them all come out. I'm not sure when. I would imagine it's going to be sometime closer to the beginning of the season, or maybe even like just before, just to kind of drum up hype for it. But all I know is I'm eager to see what Fanatics and the NHL has cooking for this.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and me, I've discussed this with Hockey Princess. I already know what Hawks jersey I want next. It's just I don't know if they can actually do it. In their pregame for the season, their little video before they do introductions, they show the Blackhawk patch, from the Army days of the first owner, and that's something that I think would make an unbelievable transition. I don't know if they're allowed to do that. I know Vegas wasn't allowed to call themselves the Black Knights.
That's exactly what I was just going to mention.
And I don't know I just think it would be a phenomenal take. I think it would look great. I just don't know if they're able to do that. So
sure. It would definitely come down to a clearance thing. I mean, they would probably just have to get the clearance from the Army to be able to use the likeness of the patch or whatever. We've seen minor league and other like semi-pro teams do like military tribute jerseys with military insignia before. It is a little different when you do it at the professional level, because I know especially the NHL is a little more protective of their image. They're not doing the SpongeBob jerseys like the ECHL and the AHL teams are doing, which, call me crazy, I wish they would. I think it would be great. I think it would be incredible. Just imagining like Cale Makar ripping around in a Patrick Star jersey would be so funny.
Most definitely. And again, we have like Rockford, which has a good amount of specialty jerseys.
They go crazy with their jerseys. Yeah, I love them.
It's fun stuff, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. At the root of it all, it should just be fun. Like it doesn't have to be so serious all the time. Like when the playoffs come around, yeah, clamp it down. Like you get your home and your away jersey and that's it. But during the season, like, and I know the NHL loves making money. Why wouldn't you want to make more of it? This kind of stuff only gives you the opportunity to do that more and more. And to turn it down or turn it away is stupid, frankly.
Yes.
Oh, for sure. All right, Charlie, one more question about kind of the site and everything. I'm curious as to what your process is for just going to vintage stores and like looking online and trying to like hunting down for your catalog. I'd imagine that it's a mix between like going in person versus kind of scouring the internet for stuff. But do you kind of like have an idea or like a list of things that you're like always on the lookout for? Or is it kind of just sees the opportunity when you see something?
I would definitely say it's more of the latter towards the end of that, where it's being up here in Milwaukee, it's not exactly the most hockey centric market. Thankfully, there are hockey fans out here and they are great every time that I do come across them. But when it comes to doing what I do, finding vintage hockey pieces out in the wild is not exactly a walk in the park.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, though, I have spent a lot of time in the vintage community over the past couple years in both Illinois and Wisconsin, and I've made a lot of connections through that. And I have people that look out for me, thankfully. I'm always grateful for their help. I also work at a vintage store here in Milwaukee called Sayward that has a decent amount of vintage sports and sometimes hockey items come in. So the owner, Benny, will let me know when that stuff does come in. And then online, it's a little more difficult online just because of shipping and everything, but if I do happen to come across some snipes, I will definitely take advantage of them when they do cross my path. Um, I'm definitely slowing down a little bit as we get into summer here as the off season comes around.
Mm-hmm.
But when September, probably August, honestly, comes around, I will definitely be ramping things back up, stocking up for the new season, getting things up onto the website, ready to go, that kind of thing.
Nice. And speaking of being in the Milwaukee area, like obviously they have the Admirals, but they don't have an NHL team.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chicago Blackhawks, for that, unfortunately. But kind of what's the hockey scene like in the Milwaukee area, in the Wisconsin area? Kind of what's it like?
It is still at a very if you know kind of state.
Mm-hmm.
When you come across other hockey fans here, there's kind of a mutual sense of like, oh, finally somebody like me, because there's not a lot of us out here. I've been
Mm-hmm.
trying my best to find more and more hockey spots around here. I've been hanging out at Elwood's over on Water Street. Been meaning to make it over to Puddler's Hall over in Bayview. That's another really big hockey bar around here. But just besides that, when you go to Admirals games, you see a wide array of different teams and jerseys being represented. And I've always loved that part of it. I love the fact that there's no team that anybody necessarily has to tie their allegiance to here. It kind of makes it like a melting pot, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, being a jersey addict, seeing all the different jerseys when I'm walking around the concourse never gets old. But for being here in the city in general, I do feel like there's a lot of work that could be done as far as like making hockey a bigger thing here. We have the college games that come here around Christmas every year at the Fiserv. The Blackhawks were doing preseason games here a couple years ago, which I really wish they would bring back.
Yeah.
But those don't exactly like do as well as like Badgers games do in Madison, where they have a feverish following over there. I've been doing a live event in Madison for almost 3 years now around Christmas for the Culver's Cup high school tournament over there. And people don't really care about pro hockey over there. If they do, they care about the Canadians because they have Cole Caulfield. And Cole Caulfield still owns that area like nobody's business. But they're all Badgers fans. And it's interesting to be surrounded by a different kind of hockey fan, being
Mm-hmm.
a Blackhawks fan. Like I never really got into college hockey until recently.
Yeah.
Ever since I moved up here, that's been my real exposure to college hockey, because I've always just had NHL hockey to focus on, kind of the inverse of what we're talking about here with Milwaukee. Milwaukee is just kind of in between both of those things. They have the Badgers an hour or so away from them, and then they have the Blackhawks about 2 hours away from them, and then they have the Admirals, like you said. But more times than not, when I try and talk to people about hockey around here, especially people who aren't really into it or aren't familiar with it, the sentiment is always the same. They always say like, "Oh, I'd care about it more if there was a pro team here, like if there was like a reason to care about it."
Mm-hmm.
Kind of shading the Admirals, but whatever. But I understand at the same time. Like it's not necessarily the same rooting for an AHL team as it is rooting for an NHL team. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. But I do believe that there would be a better hockey community up here if there were a pro team in Milwaukee.
Do you find a decent amount of fans that are like Blackhawk fans up there? Or is it truly like a mixing pot of, like you said, Canadians, wild Blackhawks, kind of just across the board? Because I know in other sports, Milwaukee and Chicago have a decent rivalry, be it baseball and other kind of sports. Does that translate over so that there's like less Blackhawk fans because folks just don't want to root for Chicago because of other reasons, or is that kind of separated?
So, in my opinion, it's three different teams for the most part that people root here for, and that's not everybody. I've heard other teams, but the top three for sure are definitely the Blackhawks because of proximity and because they were successful within the past 10-15 years. The Wild, again, because of proximity and recent success. I've heard a lot of people say they've turned into Wild fans recently because of some of the young players that they've gotten, and they've been a more exciting team recently, which I completely understand. And then the third one is Detroit. I would say both 2 and 3 are looped in the same thing, where it's a lot of people who are like, I can't picture myself rooting for Chicago, so I'm just going to root for either one of these teams that are somewhat close, but are also rivals of the Blackhawks. So there is some of that sentiment for sure, where it's like, I can't picture myself rooting for Chicago. There's no way I'm going to root for the Blackhawks. But then there is a strong contingent of Blackhawks fans here. As I mentioned them earlier, Elwood's, they're the official Blackhawks bar of Milwaukee. So there's always a good amount of Hawks fans you could find there. But as far as that goes, yeah, I would definitely say it's those three teams for the majority of hockey fans that I come across out here. But I've met Canadians fans, I've met Blues fans, Jets fans, all different kinds of teams.
Excellent. Christy, do you have any thoughts before we flip to a ad break?
Thoughts? Not right now. I might have them later. Okay. It all comes down to this. Best of 7 battle, and DraftKings has you covered every step of the way. The DraftKings Sports app is now available in all 50 states and includes all markets. Sweat every shift of the series, all in one place with one app. New DraftKings customers sign up with the code THPN, spend $5 and get now 200 in rewards within 21 days. That's code THPN in partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Bet with DK Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 1-800-MY-RESET. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, bet text pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 and over. Void in Ontario. Event contract trading with DraftKings predictions involves risk of loss. Sportsbook bonus bets expire in 7 days. $50 in predictions dollars issued weekly for 3 weeks expire in 1 year. Redeem one non-withdrawable reward. Availability varies. Predictions offer void in New York. Ends June 28. Terms at dkng.co/audio.
What are your thoughts about, especially at this kooky crazy finals and the playoffs in general?
So I'm just going to hand up. I did not pay attention to game 3 the other night, and I severely regret it. I was out doing other things with some friends, and then I saw the Mitch Marner natural hat trick and was like, "Oh, this is not looking good. We're gonna." And then, of course, I get a text later, and someone's like, "Are you watching this?" And I checked my phone, and it's an overtime. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I wasn't by a TV, so I had to listen to it on the radio. And of course, Vegas ended up pulling it through. But needless to say, it has been a wild finals, to say the least. I don't think anybody really expected it to get this crazy. But I feel like that's the story every year. Something like this always happens where we're not really expecting, especially with Carolina, I think, me personally, I expected them to be a lot better defensively. That they seem to be letting up a lot of stuff that they usually wouldn't let slide. Like the way that they were just able to contain teams the first 3 rounds of the playoffs, it just doesn't seem to be. They don't seem to be able to do that to Vegas at the moment, and it's Vegas is definitely using it to their advantage. It's been kind of a shootout. I can't really say that either goaltender has played particularly fantastic. And again, like I said, Carolina's defense probably has some blame to go with that. But I'm just excited to see how the rest of the series pans out. I can't wait to see game 4. I'm a little unnerved with 3 days between games with no travel, but then again, these guys do deserve a break, so can't be too harsh on it.
I can't, at least for me, I cannot remember a finals that's gone into game 3 where everybody still is giving up this amount of goals. Usually that first game, it's pretty wide open, but by game 2, everybody is safe. And that doesn't seem to be the case here. There seems to be a lot of stretch passes. And at least for me, I'm a little bit over the whole everybody is just going to use their pitching wedge and put the puck to basically the opposing blue line and see how it bounces.
Mm-hmm.
And one-on-one battle for it. And that's how things are starting. It's not complete hockey to me, but that seems to be something that both teams have decided to use heavily this year. So
both teams are incredibly fast. They're 2 of the fastest teams in the league by far. But like you mentioned, typically in finals, teams are able to nail it down by this point and are able to lock each other down defensively and almost have a step on each other. And neither of them wants to make a mistake and put themselves in a bad spot in the rest of the series. But we're not really seeing that from either of these teams. We're seeing a lot of fire wagon hockey, a lot of up and down the ice action. Like you mentioned, a lot of stretch passes, very wide open offensive hockey. But I mean, for the fans' perspective, I think it's great. For these guys going forward, I don't know which team is going to be able to sustain it more going forward. Obviously, it's in Vegas's favor as we sit right now in this series, but Carolina is by no means out of this series. There's still plenty of hockey to be played here, especially if this goes 2-2 after game 4. It's a best of 3, and I think I'm not alone in saying everybody would love this to get to 7.
Oh, most definitely. And then I guess I'll ask another question just because I like hearing, different hockey fans' opinions. So when the playoffs start, the Hawks are nowhere around it. Do you then have an allegiance to one team that you're going to root for, like through the finals? Do you watch a lot of playoff hockey with at least some vested interest, or are you just kicking back? I'm always curious at how people go about this.
So I do actually. The past couple years, it's paid off somewhat well, except for the ending. But even though I am a Blackhawks fan, my favorite hockey player in the world right now is Connor McDavid. I absolutely adore watching the guy play hockey and watching the Oilers go to the finals 2 years in a row before this. I only developed more and more respect for him, even though obviously him and the Oilers didn't come out on top either of those years. It never really diminished my respect for him. I still believe he's the most talented player on the face of this earth right now. With that being said, going into these playoffs, yes, I definitely did pick Edmonton to win the Cup, and it paid off horribly. But we also couldn't predict McDavid breaking his foot in game 2 and then trying to play on it, and obviously noticing that he was a shell of himself the rest of that series, which, give the Oilers credit, they did the best that they could with pretty much half of McDavid, but the Ducks were too much for them. And then once that happened, it's kind of wide open for me. I'm just hoping for exciting hockey at that point, just kind of like what we're seeing in this series, just goals, 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 highlight reel plays, great saves, great stops. I mean, it's the best time of year to watch hockey, and I can't tell anybody, fan or not, that enough. Playoff hockey is what hockey fans like all of us spend all year watching to get to, whether our team's in it or not. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it. Some people are different. I would like to believe that even though my team isn't in the playoffs are still the best product that the NHL has to offer by far.
For sure.
Oh, no doubt about it. And then, with you being in the Milwaukee area, do you notice like an uptick in hockey watching, or is it more like, because even down here, it's still a basketball world. I mean, we're well behind the curve from the general population. Do you notice it a little bit more on now, and people seem to be a little bit more vested, like when you go out? Or
I think the only uptick that I've noticed is recently during the finals, especially with the fact that the games have been on ABC. It's super easy for the bars around here to just throw on ABC and, oh, cool, there's a hockey game on. And it actually means something because it's a Stanley Cup final game. That's pretty easy sell. But otherwise, as you mentioned, basketball definitely has taken center stage around here right now, especially with the Knicks being in the finals. I think every city in America besides San Antonio is having some form of Knicks fever at the moment. It's infectious. You can't help but enjoy it a little bit. But personally, I am rooting for the Spurs because I do enjoy Wemby a lot. But besides that, I haven't really noticed a particular increase in hockey viewership over here. Like I said, when I'm out and about, I do see it more than usual, especially with it being deeper and deeper in the playoffs. But outside of that, not really.
for you, Charlie, what has been the biggest surprise of the playoffs?
Biggest surprise, I would have to say, is, I mean, he's the talk of the hockey world right now, Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner is definitely the biggest surprise of the hockey world, the hockey playoffs right now. I mean, just 1 year removed from being on his hometown Leafs and only having, I think if I remember correctly, 13 career playoff goals. He already has 10 this year. And I mean, if things go the way that they're looking right now for Vegas and they pull it off, I think he's a shoo-in for the Conn Smythe. And what a story it would be to see him bring the Stanley Cup back to Toronto for himself and not for the Leafs. And but it does go to show, it's not a myth that playing in Toronto is different than playing anywhere else. I mean, maybe Montreal is the only other comparable place to it. Maybe Ottawa. But Toronto is the mecca of hockey for especially English-speaking Canadians.
Yeah.
Like we're seeing with the Knicks right now in New York, if they were to get to this spot, it would be pandemonium. Which me personally, I've been rooting for. I would love to see the Leafs get over that hump finally and bring a cup home, but I think Mitch is going to beat him to it.
I think you're correct. And yeah, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I love the Leaf Anks. I could have it for breakfast every day. It's beautiful. And no, on this show, we try to explain to viewership the exact difference of the level that's here in the States and the level that is up in Canada is, completely night and day. I like to tell people around here, you think about that 85 Bears team and then multiply that by like 10. That's the Maple Leafs.
Every year.
They rule everything. Everything hockey wise comes through Toronto and back out. And it's kind of hard to explain to people. I get where Mitch was coming from. I don't think my opinion's a little different on it. I don't think it was until the end of the year last year where things really got a little nutty as far as fan base and anger. I don't think that really affected him that much wanting to leave. I think it was the fact that they couldn't put together a team to succeed. And at some point in time, you're like, That's the only reason he went to Vegas. I want to win.
Absolutely.
You're remembered a lot more if you win. So,
I mean, your name isn't etched in history if you get all the way to the top, and nobody can take that away from you. And yeah, it's sort of similar to that. I mean, you get to a point, especially for a player like him, where you spend 9 years playing in your hometown's team, time and time again coming up short. And especially, I do believe I said it as soon as Toronto and Florida lined up with each other in those playoffs. Whoever's winning that series is winning the Stanley Cup. Guaranteed. And sure enough, it happened. And it was Florida that did end up going to win the Stanley Cup. But I do believe if Toronto was the one to come out of that series, they would have went all the way to the Cup. Because they were by far each other's biggest threat at that point. And when you don't get over that and you feel like you had every possible piece in order to do so, sometimes you've got to walk. And I don't blame Mitch for doing that. It's a business decision, sure, but I think it's a legacy decision at the end of the day, too.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's just, the national story of all of it has just been phenomenal. I'm sure back in Toronto, it's even much more nuts. I mean, Vegas players have even come out and said when they do one-on-ones, okay, we talking about Toronto? First thing they say in any interview, because that's just kind of the way it is. But
absolutely,
if we can go back to the site, full disclosure, I didn't do my homework and go to the site. So for our listeners, can you give like an overview? Is it just hockey jerseys? Is it gear also? Do you have like specialty T-shirts? Give us like an overview of your site so we can kind of put up some interest to get them there.
The basic elevator pitch that I could give you is my website is entirely focused on vintage hockey clothing. So not necessarily gear like gloves, helmets, sticks, or any of that nature. I mean, I collect that for myself personally just to kind of display around my place. But as far as the website goes, just vintage hockey jerseys, shirts, hats, sweaters, all different kinds of stuff. Hopefully going to expand to collectibles in the future. And along with that, over the course of the summer, I am going to be spending a good amount of time practicing how to sew and embroider and learn how to upcycle more pieces so that can take older vintage blanks and add patches to them or whatnot, or cut up other t-shirts and add them to jackets and whatnot, just to give new life to older pieces that might not still be viable as what they originally were, but could be used for something else.
Oh, that's a really neat take. I like that. So also this isn't your typical this jersey signed here bid. This is a close. Oh, I wish I would have went to the site now.
Yeah,
I will when we're done here.
In the future, hopefully things will grow and expand to that point where we are getting high level product like that. But for me personally right now, it definitely is hard to come across that kind of thing. I'm trying my best as a solo business person right now, but I would like to think things are going pretty well for how things have been going so far. And again, I must reiterate, I can't thank the people enough for all the support that they've given thus far and going forward. It's nothing short of special to be able to say that I am following my dreams for my job. And that's exactly what I'm doing with this.
That rocks, no doubt about it. Okay. We're going to segue out of that and now into the Blackhawks, and basically your thoughts for the Blackhawks offseason, moves that you'd like to see them make. Would you like them just to stay pat? And do you have any thoughts on that number 4 pick and any thought process for the draft, like the second rounders or anything? The floor is yours, Charlie.
So, I mean, for me personally, all eyes have been focused on this number 4 pick. I think it would be foolish to get rid of it unless we knew for a fact we were getting a certified gamer on the other side of that trade from somebody. I'm not sure who that would be, but as of right now, I do see the stars aligning to where Ivar Stenberg falls to the Blackhawks. And I don't think it's that crazy to imagine at this point, especially after the Manny Malhotra signing in Vancouver. I really do believe that it all comes down to the number 2 pick for San Jose. If they take Reed, we're getting Stenberg. And I think that would be the perfect addition for not just Connor, but the rest of the young core right now. I think he would slot in perfectly with what the Hawks have going for them. But at the same rate, if it doesn't work out like that, and let's say Stenberg and Reed are flip-flop spots, I wouldn't hate having a top 4 overall pick defenseman joining the core. At this point, especially, I mean, we're already trending towards being one of the younger teams in the league. I don't see why we should shy away from that. I don't feel like the Hawks are in a position where they need to go like attract a big name free agent and sort of tank themselves cap wise, so to speak. I don't believe, based on what we've seen from the Hawks up until this point, that they're crazy far off from being a playoff team. I mean, if you look at where they finished, they were, if I remember correctly, just 10 points out from the wild card spot that Utah finished at. If Connor and Frank stay healthy this year, I do believe we're at least a little more competitive for that spot. I don't want to say full-heartedly that we'd go and get it, because Utah was a fantastic team this year who definitely deserved to be there. But I don't think the gap would have been as big as it ended up being at the end of the season for where the Hawks are. And of course, at the end of the day, when you finish outside the race, it doesn't matter where you finish, you're outside the race. And sure, it never feels good to sit with that feeling, especially some people count the 2020 playoffs. I really don't, in my opinion. In my opinion, the Hawks haven't truly made the playoffs since 2017. So until we get back there, anything less is unfortunately a failure, but I do believe the Hawks have the pieces right now, and including what we're about to gain from this draft going forward, to be able to put together a reasonably competitive team that can make a playoff run next year.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in your thought process. A lot of the things I'm hearing is the fan base would be okay with Reed. He's got his upsides, especially as a goal scorer and an offensive player. Then the other half of that question, are you okay then? There seems to be like 2 different forks in the road to take. Either just maintain the course, take the 4th pick, and kind of keep on moving forward, or would you like to see some signings, anybody to have your eye on?
So there was a name that came across my desk recently, that I would feel more than comfortable with the Hawks trading the number 4 pick for, and whatever else that package might include, I'm not sure, because I know it probably wouldn't be a 1-for-1 trade. But Jason Robertson getting onto this Blackhawks team would be extremely interesting to see, to say the least. He is a very, as some would say, one-dimensional player, but the one dimension is pretty great. And adding him to someone like Connor Bedard's team, like, I think the sky's the limit at that point. And that's pretty much the only scenario where I'd feel comfortable trading the number 4 pick. I would need to know that there's a certified gamer, like I said, on the other side of that. Otherwise, I really don't mind seeing the Hawks keep the number 4 pick. It's not, I mean, we have had a lot of lottery picks recently, but allow me to make my cliche. It's not often that you end up with one of these picks, and to squander it would be a bit of a mistake, in my opinion. Unless, like I said, there's obvious return on the other side of it.
Right. And then anybody else you would like to dabble in trade world or free agency that you've thought about for this year? Or
now, I meant to bring him up while we were talking about the Blackhawks draft prospects. If it does work out to where Caleb Reed ends up becoming a Chicago Blackhawk, I've got to wonder what happens with somebody like Kevin Korchinski. as unfortunate as it is, I've been a really big fan of his game for years. I think the Hawks have done, I hate to say it, a poor job of letting him get exposure at the NHL level. You can't keep these guys in the AHL forever. And he's not getting any younger. And I do think he has the potential to be not just a top 6, but a top 4 defenseman if given the opportunity. He just hasn't gotten there yet. But if the Hawks choose to draft a top 4 overall pick defenseman over that, I hate to say it, but I would imagine that he's probably on the trading block going into this summer for some sort of package to add to that core going forward. I hate to say it, and I would hate to see him go, because I've witnessed some great players over here in Milwaukee and similar things have happened. No, number one example being Yaroslav Askarov. I watched Yaroslav Askarov up here for 2, almost 3 years, wondering why this guy wasn't getting a chance in Nashville. He only played 2 career games for the Predators. And then he gets traded to the San Jose Sharks, and he's incredible. And like I said, if you give these guys the opportunity to shine, some of them will prove it. I think they just need the chance to do that.
Okay, great answer. Okay, and then we have the wrap-up question, which you're going to start us off with while I try to think of something. And the Hockey Princess would like to know, what would be your weird combine question that you would have for the prospects at the combine here in Buffalo?
So before I answer, I was wondering why that specific question came up, but then I was listening to one of my podcasts that I listened to this morning, and they were talking about the Canadiens draft questions, and I was like, oh, wow, these are actually wild. But
if you could, what were a couple of those?
The one about, like, if you and another person were on a stranded island and you had one bottle of water and you had to keep walking, like, what would you do, like, with the water and and it's like the options were like kill the other person or like go and find more water or something like that. And that just weird off the box stuff. They would make them toss like a puck into a garbage can and see like how seriously they took it or something like that. These are all, I'm paraphrasing this, of course, but my question, and we discussed this a little bit last night, was if you were to show someone who has never watched hockey, if somebody said to you they've never watched hockey before, whose highlight tape would you show them? And if the draft prospect that I'm talking to says themselves, I'm drafting them immediately. Certain answers will definitely get good points with me. I mean, if you tell me Pavel Datsyuk, my personal favorite, Marian Hossa, even just Wayne Gretzky, I mean, you can't really argue with those. But if you say yourself and show that amount of confidence off the jump, I think I can't let you leave the room at that point. You're going on my team.
That's an excellent one. I love that one. Hockey Princess, yours?
You're gonna have to relay back. But I have 2. Neither are really like performance related. One is how many Blazer cardigans are in your closet, because every hockey player has at least like 5 to 10, and they all look the same aside from Miguel Sergachev. And 2, I would ask them to pull up their 2025 Spotify Wrapped and let me see how high Morgan Wallen is ranked.
If that's towards the top of the list, they're not on my big board anymore. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. Thanks, but no thanks.
Yes.
Okay, Krusty, I don't even know who Morgan Wallace is, except for the last week. I heard something about a flipped over piano and then something else. I know he will be in Chicago on the 19th. And for that, I am going to see Marcus King at the Salt Shed instead, who I would suggest would be a much better person to go watch. But I don't want to upset anybody. Your listening pleasures, your listening pleasure. So those were Hockey Princesses too, and I still can't come up with anything. I will, while I'm still trying to think, I will go over, I believe it was Nashville's one from this year, where they gave them a task. And the task was to stack golf balls.
Sure.
Which supposedly, according to what I read, is possible, but extremely difficult to do.
I could imagine.
And they wanted to see what their level of frustration or care was going through the process. And I thought that was a good one. I cannot, while we're on the subject, I can't believe the hoops everybody has to jump through.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, if I'm that hockey player that wants to show you my highlight to get people to watch the game, once I'm told to do that, I take both golf balls, I throw them in the garbage, and I walk out. I'm like, hey, you go wherever you need to go. This is the stupid, but they've, it's all a game. I can't really.
Yeah, I don't understand why these teams feel they need to like run a psyop on these guys. Like it's just hockey at the end of the day. Like if you want to do some like weird drills or whatever on the ice, like that's one thing.
Yeah.
But asking these questions that aren't even necessarily related to the game just to kind of see like how you'd answer them, I guess, is interesting to say the least. But then again, like they are throwing around millions of dollars, so you kind of want to have your processes, I guess.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is building, a house with cards and, telling them they can only use certain cards or something just to get their reaction. But I can't, you gave me this question last night and I still can't think of anything. All I can go back to is at a little bit of a point, this is nuts.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
I understand what they're going for, that I guess it's critical thinking and how you react to new situations, but I guess some of that is I'm just old and really have never even interviewed for a job. So I would assume, Hockey Princess, I know you've done a ton of interviews, Charlie, I'm sure for various jobs you have, and I'm sure there's some weird questions there as far as why are they asking me this? And I guess it's just part of the way things are done. I find it all silly, and I'm wondering if Parter Martone, slides to 5 because he answered a question differently. And obviously that worked out well for Philly. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So that's just my take on the whole question. Sorry, I didn't have a good one, Hockey Princess. I struggled.
Okay.
It's all good. We all try.
Are we at wrap up time? We're at the hour. So I've got to relay that. Oh my God, now I've got to do her stuff. I can't, Charlie, this is a stretch for me. Charlie, first of all, thank you so much for coming on. This has been fantastic. We love talking to other hockey fans. And if you'd like to plug your site one more time as we let you go, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. And before I do, thank you again for having me on despite the technical difficulties. I appreciate y'all doing what it takes to make it work. This is a world-class operation you got going on here, and I'm very thankful to have been a part of it. But if you're interested in checking out my website, it's Triple Deke Hockey at tripledekehockey.com. I almost just gave my email address. It's just tripledekehockey.com. And if you're ever looking to reach out to the page on Instagram, it's just Triple Deke VTG. Message me anytime. I'd be glad to answer any and all questions that y'all have. If you're looking for anything specific, I'd be glad to help. But going forward, just trying my best to make this as much of a community built project as possible. Whatever people are looking for, I will definitely try my best to get into the shop in as soon of a time as possible.
All right. Thank you so much, Charlie. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, y'all. Appreciate you.
All right.